Why spend thousands on a basic will when you can get access to legal help for around $1 a day? With Legal Shield, you can put a full estate plan in place, including a will, health directives, and powers of attorney to help protect your family and hard-earned assets. Sign up today at LegalShield.com and get 10% off our annual plans. It's finally simple and affordable. Legal Shield. Real lawyers, really affordable. Sign up at LegalShield.com. That's LegalShield.com. Legal Shield does not provide legal representation or advice. See a plan for complete terms.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along. Which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/zip. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. It finds them for you. Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively invites them to apply to your job. You get qualified candidates fast. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free at ZipRecruiter.com/zip. That's ZipRecruiter.com/zip. ZipRecruiter.com/zip.
Welcome along to the Irish NFL Show, now proudly part of the Believe Network. And as a Packers fan, I can truly say I've been looking forward to this one for quite some time. I'm delighted to be joined this evening by Mike Wahle, former offensive lineman for the Green Bay Packers, Pro Bowl offensive lineman, and a true gent and a true legend of the sport. Mike, welcome along.
I love the intro. Hey, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me on. Excited to talk some football with you.
Mike, I say legend of the sport because everywhere I look, as I was doing my research, you're highly touted as one of the greatest success stories in NFL history in relation to the supplemental draft. I mean, you didn't come through the front door. It was a long process, and in looking at your history, I'm looking at the positions that you played in the game, Mike: quarterback, blocking wide receiver, tight end, offensive lineman, Pro Bowler. Can you tell me a little bit about that journey, because it's not your orthodox front door story?
Yeah, it really isn't. I grew up in a small town in the San Bernardino Mountains in Southern California. So we had like one stoplight, Division 8 football, Division 1 being like good football, Division 8 football. I played quarterback because Todd Marinovich was a left-hander at USC. He was really good at the time, and everybody just assumed I was going to be a quarterback because I could throw a baseball really hard. I was a terrible quarterback. And so my senior year, they moved me to tight end, and I started having a great season. I got up to I was like 235 pounds. I was really a basketball player, to be honest. I got up to like 235. I had a good first half of the season. My quarterback broke his arm. I didn't catch a single pass. I think maybe one pass the rest of the year. The Naval Academy, Charlie Weatherby was starting his program up, and he recruited me. It was really I thought I was going to go. When you're young, you just think like, oh, SC is going to pick me up, UCLA, or someone's going to no, I'm not getting calls from anybody. My mom sent in like an information flyer to the Naval Academy. I never had any aspirations to be in the Navy. And they somehow got a hold of my tape and I end up going there. I go to induction day. I'm in boot camp. I get out of boot camp. I lost 30 pounds. They let me eat one peanut butter and jelly sandwich a day. I'm running like 8 or 12 miles a day. And I get out of boot camp and I walk into the facility, and they've hired Paul Johnson, who's a legend in the sport. He also doesn't have a tight end in his offense. So now I'm 205 pounds, no tight end. They're like, hey, man, guess what you're doing? You're a blocking wide receiver now. So I start playing wide receiver for a year. When you're in the Naval Academy and you're a freshman, they call it a plebe, and you basically are just getting run over by upperclassmen the entire time, any free time you have. So I decided I was going to spend all my free time in the weight room. And so I would spend like 4 or 5 hours a day in the weight room, and I would eat I do everything there. And so I ended up, getting my weight back plus, and come that off season, I went into spring ball. And Charlie Weatherby was like, "Hey man, we love the work you're putting in. You're going to be our tight. We want a tight end, and we want you to be the guy." And I call my mom. I'm so happy. Da 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 da. So I walk into spring ball and I'm kind of looking up at the names, and I find my name. It's number 66, and there's some those old ass neoprene knee braces in my locker, and everybody's looking around like I was the only one who was not in on the joke that I was going to be an offensive lineman. And Paul Johnson walks through, and I'll never forget this. And he just kind of looks at me and he goes, "You think I was going to change my offense for you? Stupid."
And
I've
was
been
that
an offensive.
was
Yeah.
that your
So,
was that your first experience of playing offensive lineman? Because
oh,
We've had Mark Schlareth on this show, and he's
yeah.
broken down the intricacies of offensive line play. It's not as simple as get a big strong guy out in the field and he can play offensive line. How does that happen?
Yeah. So I would say this: being a good athlete really, really helps the offensive line position. And I tell everybody this. So I spend all my time now, all my free time working with NFL offensive linemen, college offensive linemen, just trying to get them to whatever their elite is going to look like, right? And that is mostly through becoming technical masters, so they can kind of automate that part of their game, and then and then kind of expand their brain power to just kind of bring in external information, external cues, be the best read and react athlete possible. But honestly, with offensive linemen, you have to be smart because there's a lot there's a lot of calls and checks. You have to make the line of scrimmage. You have to have a good understanding of what the defense is trying to do, both as a scheme and then individually the player you're playing against. But really, you just got to be able to put up with a lot of shit. And if you've got a little toughness to you, a little edge, you can put up a lot of shit. And if you're a decent athlete, you're going to be successful. This is something you probably never heard from anybody else that is operating in the NFL. But I've said this for years. If you run a sub 540 as an offensive lineman in the NFL, you're going to be good. And you show me one who's not, and you can prove me wrong. But good athletes at the offensive line position who can kind of battle through it and find a great coach that's a technical coach and get them to move really well. Those guys have success. There are intricacies that we could go into detail about, but I'll be honest with you. If you can master a couple basic parts of your technical process as an offensive lineman, which most guys unfortunately don't, if you can do that, you can have a lot of success in this league.
Yeah, and it seems that toughness, resilience that you built up in, you clearly had all along and put to good use in the Naval Academy. I mean, that was good enough to get you to that supplemental draft. And there's a connection in the fact that you were in the Naval Academy, spent a lot of time where a certain Bill Belichick would have spent his youth, and his dad Steve. Was there any?
Yeah.
We're all well aware of how Bill Belichick has scouted the supplemental draft. Was there ever a chance that you may have been a Patriot?
Oh, I didn't. I don't know if you're setting me up on purpose or not, but Steve Belichick's the reason I'm in the league.
Okay.
So Steve Belichick, he still had a desk at the Naval Academy, and this is all unbeknownst to me at the time. But he'd kind of figured out who I was. My junior year is the first year I ever played offensive, like I was starting offensive lineman. And we're running the option, but at this point I'm 285, 290. I can move really well. All the combine stuff I can do really well. And he called Bill and said, "Hey, there's a guy down here that's probably better than Max Lane," and they had Max Lane up at the Patriots, so it's kind of a point of reference, Naval Academy guy. And Bill called his agent, Neil Cornrich. Neil Cornrich flew down to the Naval Academy, bought me an ice cream, and said, "I think you could go to the league, and I want to work with you." And it sounds like I'm literally like Forrest Gump through this whole thing, just kind of like, okay, I have no idea what's going on. I was just very lucky. This kind of series of events happened and unfolded in my favor, and ended up getting picked up in the supplemental draft. Green Bay Packers. Ron Wolf was an Annapolis area guy. He likes military guys. So Ron picks me up in the supplemental draft. I get drafted to a team that just been in 2 Super Bowls. So I'm going into a locker room that has Brett Favre, Reggie White, Santana Dawson, Leroy Butler, all these, Mark Chimura, Frank Winters, all these really, really fantastic guys, but really, really fantastic pros and guys that have the right mentality to play ball at an extremely high level. And so you're going into an environment where it's really tough to fail, to be honest with you. Like, again, it's not easy to make it there because there's so many good players. But at the same time, if all you really lack is experience and you kind of have that other stuff, that's a great place to be.
And you mentioned all those household names, and you mentioned what a great place to be. You didn't ease yourself in either. You were a holdout, weren't you, in your first year? Mike Holmgren and yourself didn't get off to the greatest start, but clearly you smoothed things over because I think am I right in saying he was there at the end of your career as well in Seattle?
Yeah. So when I don't want to bore you with stories, but so I get drafted, and when the supplemental drafts for like rejects, right? So I miss all of training, all the mini camps. So the first thing I'm going to go to is training camp. And while my agent, Neil, he's like, listen, we want a 3-year deal. They want a 4-year deal. Again, I had no idea. This is back before the internet and, iPhones and all this and that and the other, not before internet, but you understand what I mean? Like, just not a lot of access to information. So I'm just going, oh, again, whatever you think, whatever you say. So I ended up pulling out for like 3 weeks in training camp, which I didn't think was a big deal. And I end up showing up. I get my stuff. First, I get to put on my 68 jersey. I got my helmet on, ride the bike down to to training camp. Mike Holmgren walks over and he's like, "Hey, Mike, hey, come here." And I'm just hunky dory. "Hey, coach, how you doing?" Da, da, da. He goes, "Hey, did you get what you wanted?" And before I can say yeah, he just starts dog cussing me, dog cussing my agent. "You son of a bitch! I can't believe you held out. Da, 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 da. You're not playing this year. I'll talk to you next year." And I just like, holy hell! Tom Levatt's our line coach. He walks over and he goes, "Well, you heard him. I got to coach the guys that are going to play this year, man. Sorry, but just try to pick up some stuff from the vets." So my first year is literally just Jeff Dellenbach, Frank Winters, like all the vet guys. I'm just like watching them, trying to figure some things out. I still remember option offense. I barely know how to get in the set. So there was a lot of tough sledding there early on. But the one thing that the Naval Academy taught me was we practice harder than everybody else. And so I knew that just from the practices and the way things were going, some of like the physical confrontations, like I can handle myself in this league. I might not know what I'm doing, but I can work my way to it. And it was rough there at the beginning, but I think like you said, by the end of my career, Holmgren is the guy that brought me to Seattle for his last year and my last year, unfortunately.
Yeah, there's a great quote by a legendary rugby player in Ireland here, Paul O'Connell. It's be the best at the things that require no talent. So it's just it seems like a mindset, and that steely toughness obviously led you to play 11 seasons in the NFL. So I mean, when you consider the average longevity of a career, it's a really, really it's a really cool story. And I'll be honest, I could listen to it all night, especially when I'm talking to a former Packer. But I want to get on to the Packers, Mike. And look, they have been in the news for all the wrong reasons this week. And Josh, we're not going to get into the legalities because obviously there's a process to play out. I think Matt LaFleur said all the right things, everything you'd expect from a coach. He's not allowing his players to be put in front of the mics to speak on this. And obviously, if any or all of these allegations prove to be true, football will pale into significance. Or pale in significance compared to what everything else that's going on. And so we don't want to dehumanize the story of the situation, but just talking from a purely football point of view, Matt LaFleur has to be contemplating the possibility now of a season without Josh Jacobs for at least a part of the season, if not the whole season. What does a Green Bay Packers team without Josh Jacobs look like, and what does it do to their ceiling this season?
Oh man, it's a really tough question. I think 2 years ago he was the best player on offense. Last year, I don't know how much of that was him, how much of that was the offensive line not playing maybe at the level they needed to. I think schematically they changed up a little bit and maybe weren't as. I don't think they had the drive to consistently instill the run game against every opponent. But he's a top player in the league. Obviously, been an All-Pro, 3-time Pro Bowler, I believe. I do think that this opens up the door, and everybody has been talking about Marshawn Lloyd and, what the ceiling is there. Can he stay healthy? If the answer is yes, like he's a special guy. He moves differently than everybody else. I think Chris Brooks is a good pro, but you really start looking at Marshawn Lloyd. Is he going to be able to take, is he going to be able to be 20, 25 carries a game, or can we get him 20, 25 touches a game? In this offense, and having a quarterback like Jordan Love, having Tucker Kraft coming back, obviously having some of the wide receivers that we do now, you have to feel like they're going to try to get those guys maximum amount of touches every single game. And it feels like the way that they're going, particularly with this offensive line and the way they kind of played last season, you're going to rely on Jordan Love being the engine for this team more so than the running back, even if Josh Jacobs was still playing. And again, we don't know what's going to happen there. Maybe he ends up playing in the entire season. But regardless, you do think that it does kind of feel like it's time for Jordan Love to completely take over this offense. And I think with Matt LaFleur at the play calling helm, what that means is there's going to be a lot more action going to the tight ends and wide receivers, kind of in the vein that it did last year. I would love to see. Listen, there's nothing that an offensive lineman likes to see more than a running back averaging 5 yards a carry, getting 20, 25 touches a game. I just don't know if it's in the cards for this team one way or the other. I think this actually might make it easier for Matt LaFleur to, I mean, nothing's easier about losing one of your best players, but it does kind of make it easier to go, well, why'd you throw it 40 times this week? Well, did you see our backfield compared to our wide receiver room? Like there's a difference now. So, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. And you talk about, you talk about the narrowing of options or the narrowing of focus being spinning it into a potential positive. Those wide receivers, and look, maybe Matt LaFleur goes out and he looks at bringing back Emmanuel Wilson. Maybe he looks at a crowded backfield in Arizona and James Conner and Tyler Algier. Maybe he does something like that. But let's assume he keeps the backfield that he has and Josh Jacobs is wrapped up for a little while. You now narrow the focus, and we're also talking about the amount of receivers that the Packers lost in Dobbs and Wicks throughout the season. Again, you can look at it as a negative, or you can spin it to a positive and say, well, you've got a whole load of reps now. I think you've got a combined 131 pass attempts, 85 receptions, and over 1,000 yards between those two guys last season. You've had Matthew Golden, who might claim he was starved of opportunities and reps. You've got Christian Watson. You've got Jaden Reed, who are all ready to step up and be true number one, true number two. When you narrow that focus and guarantee them more reps, can you spin that into a positive? And always, I know health is always a factor with the likes of Watson, but there is potential to see that turning into a real elite receiving core based on the fact that they now know they're now confident in their roles and their roles are more clarified.
Well, I think the person that benefits, on paper the most from this is probably Matthew Golden, because he's going to get those. He's already inserted himself into, or I would say that he's inserted into the lineup now as that slot receiver. And I think you just kind of like, there's only so many footballs to go around during the game, and if you take away a guy that's going to get it as many times as Josh Jacobs is getting, it's got to go somewhere. And obviously Matthew Golden's probably sitting there chomping at the bit. Now for me. Before he got injured, I thought Tucker Kraft was the best player on this offensive football team, and I think I expect that he comes back healthy, and he's going to continue to, in the vein of a George Kittle, be a really good two-way tight end in the National Football League, and probably look to be some sort of All-Pro, Pro Bowl recognition guy this year. I think he's that kind of talent, and I thought he was the engine of the team when he was healthy. So I do think that. The Packers offense is going to continue, as we've seen for years now, to evolve based on what the personnel is and what the talents of the quarterback is. This is a great opportunity for Jordan Love to solidify himself as the top 10 quarterback in the National Football League. And you got to feel good. I know you get rid of Romeo Doubs, who's been a good player for the Packers the last couple of years. Dontavian Wicks has had some good moments with the Packers for the last couple of years. But really, Christian Watson is a guy who can be a bona fide superstar in the league. You got a first-round draft pick in Matthew Golden. Jaden Reed's done some. He's kind of a Swiss Army knife, and all the things he can do, in front of the line of scrimmage, behind the line of scrimmage. And you do have an All-Pro caliber tight end in Tucker Kraft, so you have to feel good about everything there. It's just, it always goes back to, and this is the hard part with football now. With all that being said, you still see a ton of successful offenses with great offensive lines running 12 and 13 personnel. And do you feel confident and comfortable that we can get into those formations and personnel groupings, and regardless of who is in the backfield, churn out 4.5, 5 yards of carry with consistency, so that you can free up from a safety and rotation standpoint what those other guys are able to do? Time will tell. I'm sure they're going to have it schemed up great. It all comes down to execution and those guys really stepping up in moments. One thing that we have seen with the Packers the last couple of years is they are at or near the league leader in drop passes. And those guys, all the guys I mentioned, are part of the problem. So that's one thing that you certainly have to improve on. But if they do, I do think this is not a net positive, because you're losing a great player. But I think you can spin this into somewhere where maybe we have this really major breakout season from Jordan Love.
On the other side of the ball, we saw a team that was one of the top teams in terms of win pass rush win rate with Micah Parsons on the field, that dropped to one of the bottom teams when he was off the field. We know that they're going to be without him for at least 4 games at the start of the season. I think he's on the PUP list, or there was a lot of talk about him on that list. You also saw the Packers get teams into 3rd and long situations quite a bit, and then busted coverage, and there was a lot of deep shots taken at key moments, and it really led to, between that and missing Parsons, turning points in key games. Like you look at the Bears game, the Broncos game, games that were in their grasp. Are you happy with what they did in the offseason in terms of shoring up the secondary and the pass rush, or is there a bit more to do?
Yeah, I think it's tough. First of all, bringing in Gannon and having understanding that maybe you're a base 3-4 defense, but I think he said he's kind of like we're going to do with the situation that he tells us or dictates. Micah Parsons was everything for this defense and really this football team last year. You see the fall off when he got hurt, and we start talking about busted coverages in the secondary, and those things work in unison. So if you don't have a pass rush, which they just flat out don't have without Micah Parsons last year, you can only hold off against good quarterbacks and receivers for so long. I obviously bringing in 2nd round draft pick, 3rd round draft pick at nose tackle, you're directly addressing. I think 4th round draft pick is also an outside linebacker. You're directly addressing the defense for a reason. Is that enough? Or is Sissy going to be able to take over the spot from? Is it Nixon? Is it Valentine? I don't know. The good news about the Packers secondary is they have one of the best safety rooms in the National Football League, and they have 3 guys that need to be on the field at all times. So it does kind of take away that, whether it's the star or the slot position, you do have that optionality with Williams, certainly. I'm always a little more concerned about the pass rush. I think the pass rush really dictates the terms of confrontation when you talk about offensive versus defensive. And we don't have anybody on the field right now. And I like Javon Hargrave, especially back 3 years ago when he was with Philly. But, coming off the injury, had the last 2 years haven't been as productive. He's still a very, very good player, and he can probably only get better the further away you get from that injury. But you really don't have a guy you have to game plan against without Micah Parsons. And when you look at Lucas Van Ness, the Devontae Wyatt, Carl Brooks, I think they're all really good players, but there's not one of them that if I'm going into a game, I'm like, oh man, we really got to do something about these guys. Until they prove that they can rush the passer and win their 1v1 matchups, I don't see how you're going to have a successful defense unless you become more and more aggressive, which Jonathan Gannon has proven that he's willing to do in Arizona, and bring safeties. We brought in Zaire Franklin. We just got rid of Quay Walker. What was Quay's best thing? It was attacking the line of scrimmage in the pass game. That's what he was best in Georgia. That's what he was best in the Green Bay Packers. Franklin can do the same. Guys that can do that from the outside linebacker position and the inside at that. But really, how to create pressure without being too obvious at going towards the quarterback, and letting those guys in the backfield, particularly those 3 safeties, do their job at a high level. That's really going to be, for me, what makes or breaks this defense. We can't wait to get Parsons back, but who is going to step up in his stead? Is it Javon Hargrave? Does Lucas Van Ness take that step that we saw, an Aaron Campman take in his 4th year? All those questions remain to be answered, but there's certainly players on that field that you feel really excited about, and they were building something really great until our defensive coordinator went to Miami to become a head coach. So we'll see how Gannon does with that group.
Another, and I won't keep you too long, Mike, too much longer. I appreciate your time. But another phase of the ball that has been make or break, and it's been break more than make for the Packers, is special teams. I mean, I've been a Packers fan for over 10 years now. And early on, I saw one of the surest pair of hands go to collect an onside kick in Jordy Nelson, only to be intercepted by a tight end, Brian Bostic, who fumbled it, and that cost the Packers a chance to go to the Super Bowl in the NFC Championship game in 2014. We've seen it time again. We've seen muff punt returns. We've seen missed kicks at crucial moments. These things keep happening, and it hasn't been the same head coach all the time. It hasn't been the same special teams coordinator. At some point, Mike, does it just become a cultural thing, in terms of something that's not given enough credence and not given enough attention? Because we mentioned Bill Belichick and one of his I suppose strengths was never overlooking the insignificant things and repeating situations that may happen one in a million times, you know. So it just seems to have happened over and over again. They brought in a new kicker in Trace Mack. They have a new a new special teams coordinator. What's it going to take for this to not be an issue in Green Bay?
Yeah, it's such a good question, and one of the criticisms that I've had for years now is, and it's more of a question, is what kind of time and attention to detail has been given to the special teams coordinator so he can execute it at a high level? How much practice time? How much meeting time? Is he getting the right players to, is he getting is he getting defensive players to play special teams? Is he getting the first string guys to go out there when necessary? Like, a very fundamental question for the Green Bay Packers to me is like, Keyshawn Nixon was an all-pro returner, and he doesn't return punts or kicks anymore. You explain that to me. Explain that to me so I'll understand it, because it doesn't really make sense if you're trying to win football games. I've always kind of looked at the special teams as, you're going to have very, very similar athletes across the board in every team in the NFL. And it comes down to how much of a spotlight are you going to shine on that group during the meeting times, during practice. Is it walkthrough? Is it full speed? How much time are we allotting? Is it 5 minutes? Is it 10, et cetera, et cetera? Like, we oftentimes gloss over, and I do it all the time. I don't spend a lot of time talking about special teams. I like to talk about offense and defense. But the reality is, if you're trying to win football games, at the margins is usually where you win. And I don't know that this team, under this coaching staff in particular, has done a great job. And again, I don't know because I'm not there every day, but I'm speculating that they just haven't done a great job at giving the special teams group enough time to be successful under the floodlights.
The Packers are in one of the spiciest divisions in football, Mike. You've got the Bears now, who now fully believe that they're a Super Bowl contender, and probably rightly so under Ben Johnson. You've got Dan Campbell, one of the more charismatic coaches, and what he's done for Detroit has been to instill that belief as well, that championship mentality. Another fantastic coach in Kevin O'Connell, and still a very talented roster, and with a quarterback in Kyler Murray, who I believe might be a bit of a force this year. He may have that bounce back year under Kevin O'Connell. Where do you put the Packers in that division this season? Or is it it's probably a stupid question to ask, an impossible one to answer at this stage of the season?
Let's give it a shot. I'll say this. I know Ben and Dan personally. Both those guys are incredible coaches, incredible leaders. They're really people that, like, I can just tell you that they're really people I would love to play for. Kevin O'Connell seems to be along this, cut from the same cloth. So I think you're dealing with three outstanding football coaches in this division, which makes it very, very difficult to win tight games. I'll be interested to see how Caleb Williams takes his next step here under Ben in this upcoming season. Obviously, they did a great job addressing the offensive line last year, which I think is a big reason why they did so well. I know that they've addressed their defensive box this offseason, and I can only expect that they're going to be better, which isn't great for the Packers. I just expect Detroit to be good every year. I'm surprised that they weren't last year, quite frankly. I think they just have some key injuries. I think when Frank Ragnow left early in the season, that really screwed up that offensive line. They never really recovered from that. But you just look at who they have at the skill positions, the way they drafted, the guys they bring in. I think they're going to be really good again. The Packers and the Vikings, as it looks right now with their rosters on day one, I don't know that they're as strong as Detroit and Chicago. But having said that, when you have a healthy roster, when you have an Edgerrin Cooper coming up in his third year now, when you have a Micah Parsons who's probably top 3 pass rusher or defensive player in the National Football League, you have a Jordan Love now who's gotten his big contract. He's the bona fide leader of this football team. And you've got a guy who can take off the top of the defense. You got an all-pro level tight end. Like, you've got some guys that can really cause damage in this league. Xavier McKinney, I don't want to not to mention him because he's been such a fantastic player for both the Giants and obviously the Packers. But this is a very, very difficult division, as you said. I think everybody's going to expect to win the division on day one. I think the reality is that it's probably a 3-man race with the Packers, the Bears, and the Lions. I think both those other teams are extremely good. It's just going to come down to, are you winning those? Are you winning the Thursday night game on the road? Are you winning those games that are, your time schedule is a little bit screwed up? Can you show up for? Can you not drop games that you're not supposed to drop? It's going to be a tough year. It's going to be a fun year too, though. And there's the cool thing about the NFL, the cool thing about this division now is being in a competitive division. Yeah, you beat yourself up, but you're already battle tested. And once you get to the end of the season, you get to the playoffs, you're playing against non-playoff teams. Like, you expect these guys to do well. Matt LaFleur's had enough time. I think it's going in year 7 or year 8 now. I mean, time flies in Green Bay. And it's time, I think, for Matt LaFleur to impose his personality, his will, whatever that thing is that is lacking on this team. It's time for him to be that difference maker amongst another trio of really good offensive coaches, coaches in general in the NFC North.
Mike, I'll second that. I have to say, I'm having to peel myself away from this conversation. There's so much more I could get into, but I'm very conscious of your time. Mike Wall, thanks so much. And to those who tuned in, thanks for listening. Don't forget to hit subscribe, leave a 5-star rating, write a review. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Mike Wall, it's been a pleasure.
Thanks for having me on.
Why spend thousands on a basic will when you can get access to legal help for around $1 a day? With Legal Shield, you can put a full estate plan in place, including a will, health directives, and powers of attorney to help protect your family and hard-earned assets. Sign up today at LegalShield.com and get 10% off our annual plans. It's finally simple and affordable. Legal Shield. Real lawyers, really affordable. Sign up at LegalShield.com. That's LegalShield.com. Legal Shield does not provide legal representation or advice. See a plan for complete terms.
Warning, the following ZipRecruiter radio spot you are about to hear is going to be filled with F words.
When you're hiring, we at ZipRecruiter know you can feel frustrated, forlorn even, like your efforts are futile, and you can spend a fortune trying to find fabulous people, only to get flooded with candidates who are just fine. Fortunately, ZipRecruiter figured out how to fix all that. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/zip. With ZipRecruiter, you can forget your frustrations because we find the right people for your roles fast, which is our absolute favorite F word. In fact, 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day.
Fantastic.
So, whether you need to hire 4, 40, or 400 people, get ready to meet first-rate talent. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/zip to try ZipRecruiter for free. Don't forget, that's ZipRecruiter.com/zip. Finally, that's ZipRecruiter.com/zip.